what's going on, everybody, man? My name's Riley. If it is your first time seeing my face here on YouTube, go subscribe my channel and leave a like on this video. On today's clip, we're bringing y'all a crazy story. We're going to be covering a heroic son. Yes, I'm calling him a hero because he turned his own dad into law enforcement after finding explicit images of children on his phone. You guys can kind of put two and two together, kind of figure out what was actually on his phone. So yeah, man, this son really stepped up, threw his dad in the slammer, man. That's real respect. And he's cleaning up his own streets and his family, man. Wow. Before we go roll this clip, go ahead, get comfortable. Go ahead and grab you something to sip on. And we're just gonna hop right in. Let's go.
Forces him into an unimaginable position, turning his own father into the police. What began as a simple favor, helping his dad log back into his email, would soon shatter everything the son thought he knew about the man who raised him. That discovery, allegedly, the son thought he knew about the man who raised him. That discovery
raised him.
Allegedly
Whoa!
nearly
Thought I heard something different there, bro.
files of child pornography. The bombshell has left what appears in these Facebook photos
found it
to
right
be
in
a
front of him,
once
bro.
tight-knit family distraught. Let's dive right in. For Law and Crime News, I'm Kennedy Walker. Florida police arrested
Florida,
and
bro.
charged
Come
Gene
on,
Fallon
man. Why'd it have to be Florida, bro? Why couldn't it have been like Ohio or something, bro? Florida, really, man? We getting all this trash around here, man.
20 counts of felony possession of child pornography. The 63-year-old allegedly told police that he was aware he had the images. But how police discovered his alleged secret is one we don't hear about every day. According to court documents obtained by the Smoking Gun, it all started when Gene asked his son, 30-year-old Jared Fallon, to help him regain access to his disabled email account. In September of last year, Gene's account had allegedly been flagged by Google because of, quote, sexual explicit images of children.
Wow. How ironic, right? Just to think this man is 30 years old now. He might have a kid of his own. He might be a grandpa. So he's thinking about, oh, if I leave my son or daughter with grandpa, that's probably what's going through his head right now. You know what I mean? So, W son, bro. I thought he was going to be like 18, a little younger guy, but 30? He said, you're going to jail, Dad.
What Jared thought would be a routine task, helping his dad with technology, quickly turned into what sounds like a nightmare. The son allegedly stumbled upon nearly 1,000 files of child pornography on his father's phone.
Holy shit.
One explicit image described in the affidavit involved girls between the ages of 5 and 8 years old. The photo allegedly showed several young girls watching another young girl have oral sex. Now, faced with the alleged disturbing truth about his father's potentially criminal actions, Jared called 911. A months-long investigation kicked off in October, which included subpoenas, a search warrant, and cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The search warrant was specific for a timeline between March of 2023 and September of 2024. When investigators searched Gene's Google Drive, they allegedly found 952 images of what they wrote in the arrest report as child erotica. Gene was arrested and charged with 20 counts of possession of child pornography, all second-degree felonies. To break down more of this case with me is Marian Bracha, a current professor at Temple University and former child abuse and sex crimes prosecutor. Marian, this is a heartbreaking case.
She has a heartbreaking job, man.
Unfortunately, it happens far too often, but anytime a child is implicated, anytime there is child victimization, it's heartbreaking, of course.
And what do these charges mean in terms of potential penalties?
Well, we can tell from the criminal complaint that he's been charged with felonies of the second degree, which carry a max of 15 years incarceration for each charge. Now, the original charge in Florida for possession of child pornography is a felony of the third degree, but because this defendant was in possession of more than 10 images, the gradation was aggravated up to a felony of the second degree, and because at least some of the images depict sexual battery or sexual abuse of children, that's another reason why the charges were upgraded. So there is enhanced sentencing, obviously, on the felony of the second degree charge. And I believe the defendant is facing 20 felonies of the second degree, which means
he's probably spending the rest of his life in jail, bro.
20 is his ultimate exposure, his maximum exposure that he could theoretically.
He's like, what, 65 already? 64?
Given that Fallon allegedly admitted to possessing child pornography, what are the key legal challenges he faces moving forward?
Well, we can tell from the criminal complaint, the investigator noted that he admitted to possession of these images in a non-custodial interrogation. The defendant would retain the right to challenge the evidence against him and challenge that admission as unconstitutionally obtained. So if there was, in fact, a custodial interview, if the required Miranda rights weren't issued, if there's any challenge to the subpoena or to the warrants for the ISP records, the records of the electronically stored data where the images were found, those would be pretrial issues on constitutional grounds that the defense could argue, and that is something that would have to be resolved by a judge before this case proceeded to a trial to ensure that all investigative steps were constitutionally sound.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you know, the big thing is here that there were just so many files found on his phone. There were nearly 1,000 files of pornography allegedly found on Fallon's phone. How might this affect the severity of the charges against him?
Someone sitting him this shit?
Well, as we already talked about, the gradation of the felony charge for the possession of the child pornography was already enhanced because of the number of images. So under the Florida statute, anything more, any possession of child pornography more than 10 images triggers that gradation enhancement up to a felony of the second degree. So that automatically increases his potential exposure. Technically, in some jurisdictions, you could be charged, a defendant in this position could be charged with one count of child pornography for every image that is possessed. So technically, this defendant could have faced 950 some counts of possession of child pornography. Of course, the charging decision is up to the local authorities, the police who did the investigation, and then ultimately the prosecutor's office who will be handling this case. So I can't speak for the office as to why a max of 20 charges attached to the criminal complaint, but that is, in my understanding, the technical availability of the charging decision.
All right, quick question. I don't know if someone can answer this for me. How much does it take to get a first degree felony in just child, the child images here? Because 10 images, only 10, ups you to a second degree. This guy had over 1,000 files, over 1,000. Some of those files could have videos, could have multiple pictures, you know what I mean? So it's like this dude is well over 10. How much do you need to get a first degree, bro? Because this guy, that doesn't make no sense to me, bro. Is there no first degree charge for this? Surely there is, man. Someone put that down in the comment section. Is there a first degree charge for this? And what do you have to do to get it? Because this guy somehow didn't get one. I mean, he got 20 counts of second degree, which is, was a slap of the wrist, but I would have gave him 100 at the least. I mean, what, 10% of how much he had? Bro, that's what you got, 100 felonies, brother.
And the defendant, he is facing decades in prison. That's, what we talked about at the beginning of this. If he is convicted, can he receive counseling or treatment as part of the sentence, or is it mostly just punitive?
Sure. So, Kennedy, as you're aware, anytime a defendant would go for sentencing, most jurisdictions allow for some pretrial investigation, meaning a psychosexual evaluation, psychological evaluations, even forensic evaluations to determine the need for drug and alcohol or other substance abuse counseling. So if a judge, if he is convicted and if he is sentenced on these charges, a judge would have the discretion to order that pre-sentence investigation to determine if there's a need for counseling, for other social services while the defendant is serving his sentence. And then, of course, if he is sentenced to an incarcerative sentence, if he's serving a sentence in jail or in a prison, then it would be up to the prison to make sure that those services that have been ordered by the judge in terms of counseling or other kinds of drug and alcohol treatment, if that's required, that those services would be available to the defendant. But that would all be something determined down the line, certainly post-trial and post-sentence.
Yeah, and you know what really stood out to me about this case was really how the police found out about it. His son was the one that turned him in. And it's not every day that we see a case where a son turns in his own father for something as horrific as this. How significant is the son's decision to report his dad? And what does it say about just the importance of
The good
speaking
man
up
right
in
there.
situations like this?
Well, as we said at the beginning as well, any time that a case involves a child, anytime a child is exploited or abused or exposed to any kind of harm, I think that that triggers a very natural human instinct to want to act, to want to protect and do something to remediate the situation. So you're right, this is not a common fact pattern where a family member turns in another family member or reports what he found. I think, though, it is a testament to the son that he did the quote unquote right thing, that he saw something that was so clearly amiss and so clearly traumatizing and so clearly criminal, and he acted on it immediately. A lot can be said for possession of child pornography. I know that there are very controversial positions on this, but I think the fact that it was possessed in and of itself gives rise to the need to investigate and the need to prosecute in this case.
Yeah, and just more touching more on that. We know that when family members are faced with the knowledge of a loved one committing a crime, it can, sometimes create a moral dilemma. What resources or support are available to help individuals make the right decision as the son did in this case?
I think
The
in
son? I thought he was gonna say
various
the dad, bro.
jurisdictions, and I hope in Florida that these would be available to the son. There are services that would support the family members of criminal defendants. There would be services that support necessary witnesses who may be called by the prosecution. So, in
I'm finna
cases
just call
where
law
there is a
enforcement.
moral dilemma, in cases where there could be collateral consequences to cooperating with the prosecution, to having to testify or give information against one's family member, especially one's father. Again, there would be victim witness services that are available, supports, advocates, counseling services, things that would support the son if he is called to testify or if he is a part of the prosecution, a necessary part of the prosecution moving forward.
But, is it expected that the son would be called to testify since he was the one that saw the, alleged images himself and called 911?
So there's a question of chain of custody, which is going to go to the evidence in this case. And again, it's a question of whether or not this case proceeds to a trial,
I'm
whether
about to
or
say,
not
bro,
it
dude's already
proceeds to a
guilty.
finding of fact. So the
Why didn't it be a trial for
police
this?
investigators would be able to say that they received information, that they received outreach from the son without saying on the record what that outreach was. They could say that based on that information, they started this investigation. They received a phone, they received the subscriber information for the phone, they received the tracking, the IP addresses of where these images were coming from and where they were being sent to, the email address that the images were being sent to. So technically, just on the
Someone
basis
was
of
sending
the
these
electronic
images.
information and all of the tracking information, so long as it contains its necessary chain of custody, so long as it contains necessary custodian records to say how this information was kept and retained and how it was turned over to investigators, that should be enough without the son's testimony. But to round out the story, so to speak, of how the police came to be aware of the existence of these images, the son's testimony might be a part of that narrative. It could be. It wouldn't be something that I'd be unsurprised to see or hear in a courtroom.
And that's a wrap, y'all, man. This one is it was pretty crazy, man. The son came out, did a good thing, turned his dad in, knew that he was had these images. Hopefully he didn't know that maybe he went through something growing up with him, maybe an episode, maybe, like I said, maybe he has a kid of his own that maybe had went through something. I'm not gonna put too much elaboration, but y'all could probably put two and two together. So yeah, man, it's good that he stepped out. Hopefully he gets served time here for what he's been doing. Hopefully they don't just let him out with a slap on the wrist, a month in jail. You know how that should be, especially in Florida, bro. They just be throwing anybody back out on the street. I don't know if he was a repeat offender for anything. I don't know if he was a repeat offender for the crime he's committing right now. If he's a repeat offender, he's serving some time, man. But if it's his first time ever in jail, he might just get a slap on the wrist. So we're gonna cover this one, man. We're gonna definitely do a little update video on this to see how much time this man served. This is pretty new, so the guy's still going through the trial system. If there is a trial, I'm thinking he's already guilty, but go ahead and list your thoughts and comments on this video. And if you made this far, go ahead and drop a thumbs up. Appreciate y'all watching. Y'all the real ones, by the way, if you are watching me right now. And yeah, we'll go ahead and just wrap this one up. We'll catch y'all on the next video up on the channel. Till then.